Hey guys, today is a very special episode because I have my very first ever guest here with me, and he is my older brother, Jonathan. He has joined us today because a lot of you on Instagram have engaged with me and asked that I speak more about my lifestyle, like my plant-based diet, and how I got into eating vegan and just relying more on plants for nutrition and why that's so important to me and how I got started. So I wanted to kick off the nutrition series with my brother as my very first guest because he is a man and also a vegan. And I feel like I get the most pushback from guys when they say it would be too hard for them to give up meat and they can't imagine their life without it and how are they gonna build muscle. And there's just some topics that I want to talk about today, and this is a completely unscripted episode, so we want to give you our genuine thoughts and feelings on why both of us are plant-based, but primarily we're going to focus on the male perspective today. So Jonathan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi.
I just put him on the spot.
I'm Jonathan. I am Yael's older brother.
Yes.
There's four of us. I'm the first, she's the second. And I'm glad to be on the show today.
So Jonathan and I have been very close forever, and for as long as we've been alive, and as long as I've been alive, seeing as I'm younger. But I went vegan a long time ago, and after being vegan a couple years, I went to pescatarian, then I went to vegetarian, back to vegan. I was fluctuating for several years, and then just this quarantine during COVID, I went from being pescatarian again back to vegan. And with all the books I've read since I've been kind of more isolated than usual and just all the research I've done, I can't see myself ever going back. Jonathan has been vegetarian for a few years now, but he decided to go completely plant-based and completely vegan actually before I did, again during this quarantine. So he decided a couple years ago to just give up meat and go vegetarian. And for those of you who don't know, or there's a lot of gray area around the terms because I feel like people say that they eat a certain way and then they make exceptions, but traditionally vegetarians do eat eggs, they do eat dairy, and they eat plants, but they don't eat fish and they don't eat meat. And meat includes chicken and beef and lamb and all of the animals. So they don't eat animal bodies at all, not fish either. So he made this decision a couple years ago, and could you tell us a little bit about why you made that decision?
I think that everyone has kind of a wall that they have in their brain. It's a cognitive dissonance between the animals that are your pets and your friends versus the animals that we eat. And for some reason, I just decided I didn't want to be eating animal flesh anymore. I mean, the more I was eating chicken and beef and things like that, it became really clear that it wasn't that far off from, a cat or a dog or, an animal that I love. But at that time, I still had the wall up in my brain that, dairy, milk, cheese, all that stuff wasn't flesh and wasn't as bad. And
Yeah. So did you notice any differences in how you were feeling when you initially gave up meat and transitioned to a vegetarian lifestyle?
I felt better. I felt lighter. Yeah, I didn't have as much of that full bloated feeling as I did after eating a steak or a burger or something like that.
Yeah, and there is so much science behind that. And people, I think once they've transitioned or once they even start to, it's hard at first to give up the foods you're used to having. Like one of my favorite foods growing up was chicken tenders. And when I first gave them up, I felt deprived. But after several months, you find that your palate shifts and your cravings shift. And I noticed the first time someone had chicken fingers in front of me after I'd given them up that I didn't even want the meat, I wanted the sauce.
Right.
So I was like, what could I eat that has honey mustard in it to make me feel like I'm not being deprived? And I think that we get so used to, or at least we're taught growing up, you have to plan your meals around a piece of chicken or a piece of steak on the plate, and everything else is almost simplistic. And once you decide to become vegetarian, you start to get more creative with the things you're eating. Your plates start to get more colorful. So after a couple years of being vegetarian, you decided to go vegan. And when we say vegan, we mean completely relinquishing all animal products and animal byproducts from our diet. So people who are genuinely vegan don't consume anything that was derived from an animal. What made you decide to give up all animal byproducts?
Honestly, the pandemic that we're in right now was a huge factor. Pretty much every global pandemic is zoologically originated.
Yeah.
So it comes from eating animals. And yeah, it just kind of put me off the idea of consuming animal products. I also had a lot of time to watch documentaries and
the more you know, the harder it gets to go back.
There's the animal aspect. I mean, it's easy to think if you're not eating meat, then it's not as big of a deal. But the reality is that, you know, humans only lactate when they are in, you know, an early motherhood stage. And in order to create that in cows, they have to prolong that state, and through the use of hormones and things that are bad for our health, but are also extremely cruel to the animals.
Right.
And I would say it's actually probably worse than just killing them. So,
yeah,
you know,
it's prolonged torture.
Yeah.
It's like how they say the death penalty is more kind than life in prison.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's really what it is.
But for those people who aren't a bleeding heart for animals, which we both are, but for those of you who are more concerned about your own health, or that's the thing that kind of compels you to make a change, we are the only species on this earth that drinks the breast milk of another animal and after weaning. So the breast milk of any animal is designed with a ton of growth hormone to feed their own young. So the point of dairy milk is to make a tiny little calf become like a several 100-pound larger cow. And people wonder why it contributes to obesity, and there's so many other issues with consuming dairy, but our digestive systems are not designed for milk, and it has nothing to do with lactose. Actually, lactose has been found in several studies to be the only redeeming health factor in milk. Everything else is just empty, unnecessary calories, hormones, and things that are harmful to us.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else you want to say on the topic of animal cruelty?
No, I mean, I think it's good to kind of break down that wall in your brain and realize that animals are souls with a central nervous system, and the same way that you think you're friends with your dog or your cat or whatever. I mean, cows are just the same, if not more intelligent. Chickens are very intelligent, and it's just not something that I really want to do anymore.
Yeah. Honestly, that was one of the biggest things to ever move me in the first place, because I've always been an animal freak, and I think the way that we're given meat especially is so far removed from what it actually is. Because the original reason that I went vegan, I was 16 and read the book, I'm not sure if I have to blur that.
Probably.
Skinny B word, in case I had to blur that. But I was reading it hoping for it to be a diet book, and it ended up being like a vegan manifesto. It was explaining all the cruelties of the animal industry, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And this is one of those moments where I'm like, did I have no common sense my entire life until now? But I didn't really think about the fact that they're dead animals. I was highly carnivorous growing up. I drank so much milk every single day. I gave no thought other than what my brain wanted, what my cravings were telling me they wanted. And your cravings get so jacked up when you're consuming things that are hormone laden, that are highly processed, because our bodies are not evolved to adapt to that kind of nutrition. And it's very poor nutrition. So when I realized that I was eating animal bodies, I was mad. I was like, what do you mean my chicken nuggets are shaped like dinosaurs? Like, they're my friends. Like, it's cute. It always seemed cute to me, and realizing how bloody and ugly and cruel it is, especially just industrial agriculture, is disturbing. There's a reason that it's illegal for people who work there to film inside of their workplace. It's completely illegal. There's a reason you can't find footage online of what goes on inside of factory farms in the United States. And if I disappear after uploading this video, we know what happened. But yeah, there's a reason. There's a lot of cruelty there, and it's
also countless mental health issues for the people who work in those places.
Oh yeah.
Just like killing and killing and killing and killing.
It is really terrible. And for people, like, the more you read about it, the more you're kind of shocked. And there's one shock after another. I highly recommend a whole slew of Netflix documentaries. There's What the Health, Forks Over Knives, Cowspiracy,
the Game Changers if you're
Yes.
into the sports and stuff. I'm not, and that was even a big head scratcher for me, that documentary.
Yeah, the more you read, people say, oh, but it's grass-fed. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. When you're eating one burger patty, there's so many cow bodies in the same burger patty. You don't know what kind of antibiotics they were fed. They're often fed the byproducts of other cows, like the things that they couldn't use in processing them. So that makes them cannibals. For those of you who say you eat halal meat and you only eat kosher and all that kind of stuff, those things are not regulated in the United States the way you think they are. And no matter how you slice it, it's very cruel. But Jonathan brought up a topic that actually I really want to get into on this episode, because I'm going to tell you about why I went vegan in another episode. But for this one, I really want to talk about the idea that it's harder for men to go vegan because they need more protein and they need to build muscle and it's girly, and that you're going to get skinny. And guys worry about all these things. They say that tofu is full of estrogen, which is not true. It's actually isoflavones, which are phytoestrogens. So it's plant estrogen that when we ingest it is not actually received in our bodies as estrogen because we're not plants. So it's one of those things that it's like, there's so many gray areas and there's so much misinformation that there's just constant doubt and nobody knows what to believe. So do you feel like it was harder for you as a man to go vegan, socially even?
No, well, not me personally. I don't think that hard about a lot of those things.
Right, but for guys who do.
It's very much tied to this masculine ethos, ego thing. And I think a lot of it's tied to advertising.
Yeah,
I think
sure.
it has a lot to do with images of cowboys grilling steaks and, football and game day food and stuff like that. It's sort of very tied to this like masculine ego when, and this is how I understand it, I'm not a scientist, but meat doesn't even have all the amino acids that you need for your body to absorb that protein, whereas plants do.
Also, the animal that you're eating, its body, has eaten fiber-filled foods and taken all the fiber out of them. And our digestive systems are constructed such that they need fiber to operate. We are meant to eat foods that are very, very high in fiber content, and that is how our very long intestines break down the food. But if you look at true carnivores in nature, you'll see that their digestive tracts are very short because that's what they use to break down the meat. So we're not designed to eat meat. We don't have sharp teeth. We have very long digestive tracts. So when we eat something that has no fiber in it, it's gonna sit in our digestive tracts and we're gonna secrete a ton of acid to try to break it down because we're not designed to break it down. We were plant eaters for 19,000 years before we developed the tools not to be, basically.
For me, it also just kind of came down to finding the right role models. The same way that you see this glorified carnivorous man lifestyle, it just kind of took me finding the opposite to realize that, you can be, strong and be vegan and you can eat healthfully and treat your body well. For me, it kind of took finding the right role models the same way that you look at these archetypes of big, tough men who eat steaks and all this stuff. I had to kind of find the opposite for myself. I mentioned earlier in that documentary, The Game Changers, which is about athletes and football players and powerlifters who switched to plant-based diet and were able to recover faster, were able to build muscle more healthfully and feel better and be breathing easier and all that stuff. I also took a dive kind of listening to a lot of old punk bands, and punk rock is sort of very much a culture around equality and kindness and fighting against things that are cruel or are unfair or whatever. So naturally, it sort of leads a lot of punks to be vegans.
Also longevity.
Yeah,
in careers
also
like that.
longevity
Like, how are they still wearing those leather pants and performing on stage,
Right. There's a great book by John Joseph, which the name I will not mention, but it's sort of about it's sort of about deconstructing the male ego around eating meat. And it was just cool for me to kind of find role models that were sort of the opposite and represented what I was trying to achieve.
For sure. And what do you think about male health and veganism? Because I feel like whenever guys hear about it, they say, oh, well, how am I gonna build muscle and how am I gonna be strong? And it's all marketing. It's actually not rooted in fact at all. And how do you feel physically as a completely plant-based male working out? Just health in general, really.
Honestly, I have a lot more energy. I sleep better. Another thing that people don't really talk about as much is the mental clarity that comes with it.
Oh yeah. You don't get that brain fog after you eat. You don't get the coma where you lay on the couch. I notice even after I eat a big meal that I'm up and moving around and I can get right back to work. I don't need the siesta.
Right.
So true.
Right. I mean, another thing is that when people eat animal products, it causes problems with your heart and with circulation, and your blood flow is a lot cleaner when you're eating plant-based, and especially for the fellas, you want to make sure that blood flow is nice and strong.
But it's true because they associate this hyper masculinity around I eat burgers and steaks, and that's me sounding hyper masculine. Yeah, that was good.
Really good.
So if you're going to eat things that stuff saturated fats and any sort of solid fats into your arteries, your body's not going to be able to pump blood everywhere it needs to, which is gonna damage your athletic performance, your physical health, your mental health, of course, and also your sexual health. It's an essential part of grown adult males' lives. So, but it's true. It's like one of the #1 causes of heart disease. And there was a really powerful scene in Game Changers where they show a bunch of male athletes a tube, or was it firefighters? They were showing firefighters like a tube and it was filling up with fat.
I think they were football players.
Okay. A bunch of like dudes. So they were showing the dudes what your arteries should look like and what they do look like when they're not filling up with solid fats. And fats are not the enemy, but I said solid fats, things that are solid at room temperature, saturated fats. And when you're constantly pouring those into your body, you are destroying your blood flow. And a lot of guys care a lot about having good blood flow for their own personal reasons. Just think about that. There's nothing masculine about not being able to have like an intimate life with your wife. So the whole idea that you have to eat meat to be manly is completely contrived. It's a social thing. It doesn't really make any sense. But what is your favorite part of being plant-based? Like, what is the selling point for you?
I mean, I love it. I'm probably never going to go back.
Me too.
But,
I can't imagine. It gets harder and harder to go back the longer you are. You're like, why?
How
like,
and why
it's
would you
so
do it
unattractive. Yeah.
I learned to cook a lot of different things. It kind of forces you into a different mindset with how you eat. I mean, honestly, for me, one of the biggest things is that everything that I eat now is low calorie, is healthy and nutritious, and provides my body with something. So most of the time I literally am just eating constantly, like fruit and nuts and greens and vegetables, and it all, you know, like the
and that goes for everyone. Like people who are constantly counting their calories. There's people who
no more
log
of that.
it in their phones. They weigh their food, and he can vouch for the fact that I was a very stingy eater. I was frugal with my calories. I would guilt myself if I ate more than I thought I should. I was constantly thinking about it. And even earlier today, he was making me breakfast, and he was like, "Is it okay if I put bread with yours?" And I was like, "Of course I want bread." But there were so many times,
gluten-free, of course.
Of course. But just because I have a wheat allergy, but there were so many times in my life where if he put bread or if he put oil or something, I would have been upset with him because I was so concerned about intaking too many calories when my body was not functioning optimally. But your digestion is the next topic. And digestion, when you are on a plant-based diet, is unparalleled. You never feel bloated, you never feel super full because your intestines are able to work properly with all the fiber and they're not backed up. So I found I go out to eat with my friends and I'll eat my whole kava or sweet green bowl, which is a lot of food. And when my friends can't finish, they like push it at me and I can like walk away in a crop top afterward. And why? Because my body's working. The bloated is not just your stomach, it's your intestines really being backed up. So how do you feel like your digestion and bloating and just the way you feel about your body has changed since you've been plant-based?
I really don't ever get that bloated feeling after eating anymore. unless I like, really push it with like,
Fried.
yeah, there's still fried food.
Fried food is.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way really around
Yeah.
that. But,
any way you slice it, like super greasy, sugary, or salty foods are gonna bloat you. But the idea with plant-based living too is to eat whole foods, like foods that are not highly processed.
Sure. It is just nice to not be worried about having to end my day with an early nap after eating or something, because you start to repurpose food as fuel for what you're doing and the things that you're thinking about and what you're working on and whatever. And actually, one of my favorite things about it is something that you said to me, that it is an active form of self-care. Because everything that you're doing is now contributing to your health, is contributing to feeling good, and is also, making a positive impact, and that you don't have to
eat and recover.
Well, and there doesn't have to be any form of cruelty. It's just a feel-good situation.
You feel so good. And what I meant when I said eat and recover, I feel like we're always taught to just eat the things we think we want to eat or the things that look attractive and then apologize for it later. It's like, you deserve French fries, just go work out tomorrow. But do you feel good when you eat really greasy food? What if you got baked fries? Would you feel better? It's really about listening to your body and being like, hey, what makes you feel good? And so many people I know, they're like, oh, I'm dying for a donut right now. And then they eat 2 or 3 and then they're like, oh God, I have pimples, or they say they don't feel good, they say they feel bloated, they feel swollen, and it's like, that's your body telling you that it doesn't love what you've given it. And people ask me all the time beauty tips for whatever, and I'm just like, when they say you are what you eat, they literally mean food is nutrition, it's fuel, it's the most interaction that you have with the expression of your own genes and the way you're gonna look and feel and behave, and food is the single biggest input that you have. What are you gonna do? Eat terribly and take a pill? You're not gonna eat a ton of food that makes you bloated and take a diuretic, or something you're allergic to, your body says, I don't like this, I'm getting a rash, you take a Benadryl. Listen to your body. The point of the food is to fuel yourself, and if you're getting any signs that your body doesn't like it, stop. And as for people that have been primarily subsisting on a super carnivorous or super highly processed diet, don't listen to your body initially. If you eat very fibrous foods and you feel like, oh my God, I have to go to the bathroom, that's your body saying, thank you for the fiber. Let me do what I was supposed to be doing. But because I'm out of practice, it's harder for me. And actually a book I just read called Fiber Fueled, the author makes a really, I'll put a link below. I don't think I can reference it unless I do. He makes a really amazing analogy, and he says that if I tell you have arthritis, is the solution for that to sit on the couch and never move your body again? No. If I tell you have arthritis, you need to do physical therapy, and it's gonna hurt a little at first, but it's gonna get better, it's gonna solve the problem. So if you're a big carnivore and a big processed food eater, you eat some beans, and beans are one of the most magical, healthiest, highest fiber, high protein foods ever. So if you go ahead and eat some lentils and you're running to the bathroom and you're like, oh my God, I think I have irritable bowel syndrome, and it's like, no, your body's just out of practice, and the thing you need to do is slowly reintroduce it, because most of that reaction is just a lack of practice, and it's actually the thing you need most. Listen to your body when you're eating unhealthful foods and it's saying, please stop, and your brain is just saying that that would be nice. But when you're eating whole foods, know that that's what you are meant to eat, and try to incorporate them as much as possible. And this boy has been eating so clean, and since he's been staying with me right now, he's been making me some delicious things. It's really fun to be with other people that are cooking too, because they show you different ways to do things. But I've never seen you this into cooking.
Yeah. No, and it was honestly a really fun project during quarantine. I mean, I had so much time to read and try different things and learn, and my weekly grocery store trip became the highlight of the week pretty quickly. So
it's fun to watch videos and see what other people are making, and so many of the plant-based accounts I follow, they're just so colorful, and I'm just constantly saving them, and I'm like, I need to make this and this and this, and your pantry gets so colorful. I bought him a slow cooker for his birthday. If I bought him that a couple years ago, he'd be like, why? I wanted a t-shirt. I'm not excited about it. It's like when your grandma gives you socks.
Yeah.
You're like, why?
I still want a t-shirt.
I'll get you both.
Yeah.
A muscle shirt. No. If you had to do a 20-second elevator pitch to any guy who is not convinced that he could be happy as a vegan, what would you say? I'm putting him so on the spot. Like, I'm just, I didn't tell him what I'm gonna say. He's like, okay. Doesn't have to be 20 seconds, we're not timing it.
Bottom line is that you will be healthier.
Oh yeah.
You will be stronger. You will feel better. You'll have more energy to do all the things that you love. You will take care of animals. You'll take care of the environment, and you will not regret it.
Hey. So thank you so much for joining us today, Jonathan.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. I hope you all enjoyed this special edition as we get into our nutrition series, or I'm gonna throw a bunch of nutrition videos at you and see how you feel about it. Please let me know what you think in the comments below, or if you have any questions for this guy, I know where to find him, so feel free to write them down below and he will get back to you. I'm just giving him homework now. You're on board. It's
happy to do it.
Yay. So if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, as I post a new video almost every Thursday at, say it.
4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Perfect. So thanks so much for listening, and bye for now. Ready? Cute.